Me? Well, what am I up to? Shoot! I'm just in the middle of a carb clean, or as the English would say, a carburetor clean. Let me show you. I'll take you back to the beginning. So before we tear into it, I'm going to show you my little work surface here. This is just a big piece of cardboard that I ripped up, so I have a nice spot here for if anything falls out, it's going to fall out onto my cardboard and I'll be able to find it. Although, as much as some of us fear stuff falling out of a carb, it's not a magic box. Stuff just doesn't evaporate out of it. You know, things in there are pretty solid, so we don't need to be scared of it. I was until about a week ago when I had this same carburetor out, cleaned it, and then did the stupid thing and put it all back together with dirty gas. So here we are again, taking it apart. Now I've got this little chunk of 2x4 here just to prop it up. Now this little plate here I had to remove in order to take the carburetor itself off of that four-wheeler. So this is already loosened up. Alright, that little cover pops off. We can set it off to the side. Now when this is on the four-wheeler, there's a cable that runs through here, down around and into there. This little brass piece, this little brass piece holds the end of that cable right here. So in order to move it, you've got to flip this up, flip this piece up, grab a little pair of pliers or a screwdriver or something, pry that out, and then you can get your cable free. It takes quite a bit of maneuvering and effort. On stuff like a lawnmower or some of your little mini bikes, stuff like that, this is probably going to be external. And I can show you that real quick. Like right here is the carburetor on a lawnmower, and that throttle valve stuff is all through here. So you can disconnect it without having to go internal. With this little guy, we're just setting it back off to the side. And for now, we don't need to touch this. We're going to move on to this piece, which is another part of where this carburetor seems different from a couple other ones that I've had apart or studied a little bit. Take our little baby screws out. Now if you're working on one and it's trying to pop up like that, just keep a finger on it until you're ready to actually take it off. Right, set the screw off, and then gently pull up on your piece. Hey, there's a spring in there, that's why it was pushing up. So now, I'll just pull the spring up out of the way, set it over here with that piece. And this thing's got this weird sliding rod in there. We're going to keep that all over there together. I can't believe it got that dirty just from running a little bit of old gas in it. Alright, we're ready to move to this bottom piece is what they call the bowl. Some carburetors have that on the side. I think a lot of car ones have the bowls mounted to the side. This one's underneath. This weird looking little cable hanging off of it is your idle set. That's how this model of it did that. You can just twist that a little bit and it adjusts this up and in or out a little bit, and it adjusts the idle. I'm pointing that out now because the first time I tore this apart I wasn't paying attention to where this needed to get remounted to. But if you look here, there's this little goofy looking bowl on the side. So now I know this aims right back towards that. Okay, with those there, we can pop this little guy off. And look, no magical disappearing stuff, nothing falling out of it. Now what we're going to worry about trying to really get clean here is this brass piece here. We've got to take it out, and there's another little one way down in there that we've got to get out of there. That's your jets. There it is. This little tiny guy is your jet. And that does look like it filled in a little bit. I don't know if you can see into that at all. Now I'm going to be a little bit of a nerd here and put on some PPE, some personal protective equipment. Yesterday when I was doing this, or sorry, last week when I was messing with this, I had a big old blast of this come right back in my face, and I've never had a reaction to different cleaners, but this stuff started burning. I had to run in and start washing my face. If you're wondering, this is just a little plastic face shield that I picked up from Harbor Freight. I think it was $5. I couldn't find any of the splash-proof goggles. I guess they don't carry those anymore. But I figured this would be pretty safe and at least keep my face from getting squirted with all this stuff. It didn't seem to matter which direction I was holding this. A couple of times that I was paying real close attention and being smart, aimed it away from myself, and it still squirted right back at my face. This still doesn't seem as open as it was earlier. So I've got a little pick set. I'm just going to gently poke that in there. Yeah, that definitely had some kind of grime in it. Let's give it another squirt. Okay, this little jet looks clean. We're going to go ahead and put it back in. Actually, I lied. Before I do that, I'm going to spray the cleaner right down into that hole, because that's where the jet came out of. Alright, if you're about to do this yourself, I would suggest having a couple pairs of gloves. Look at what that did to the fingers. Yeah, I don't think you want that stuff on your skin. Alright, got some fresh gloves here. We've had that cleaned. We squirted down in our hole. And I hosed off a little bit more of this all over. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this back in. Make sure the screwdriver's clean before you get it in there. Alright, now that's just bottomed out. I'm only going to give it a little baby. I mean, you're going to see that I was only holding it with 2 fingers there to give it that little extra twist. I don't want to crank down on that and get it stuck. So now we've got to get inside of there. Inside of this little hole, there's another jet. you just unscrew it a couple times, and if it's stuck in there, you can flip it over and do what I just did there. Now this little baby jet, I think, is where my problems have been. Pretty sure this is why it won't idle. Now it's so small, my little tiny pick doesn't really go into it. I can put it in there and wiggle it around. Alright, we're going to try to spray that out. I'm going to try something just a little different there and let it soak. So yeah, we just filled this up with liquid. And we can let it soak in there for a minute. See if that breaks up some kind of gunky from it. I guess while that's soaking here for a few seconds, I'll say if you enjoy this kind of content, let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to work in a little bit more of the automotive / mechanical stuff. Just sloshing that liquid around a little bit. And there we go. It's extremely hard to tell, but when you hold this up to your eye and look through it, it does look just a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to hope that that's enough and put it back. Right after we give that hole a little squirt out. Okay, now this particular carburetor has got one other spot here that appears to be a jet. I'm not quite sure how that works because it's not in the right location for a jet. But there's one more spot here. It's up here on this side. You can see another slotted spot there. Oh yeah, that's definitely got some dirt down in there. This one's a much bigger hole. Alright, you can actually see through that in the camera. I'm going to set that here on my towel and hose that out real good. There is visible dirt down in it. We've got that little guy sprayed out. We've got that hole sprayed out. But there still seemed to be a little bit of dirt in there. So I'm going to try to take a brand new towel here, roll it up here a little bit, and jam it down in there and get whatever dirt's unlodged. Or it could just be discoloration from fuel and it being roughly 30 years old. I definitely got a little bit of dirt coming out of it. I take my little pick here and wrap it around the rag and see if I can't clean that up a little better. I might have to thin that out. Then I do this carefully because I don't want to scrape it all up in there. This side has the little butterfly on it. I'm going to try to shove my fingers up in there as much as I can and clean all around it. Ooh. Now this thing on the side, that throttle actuator that I was showing you, that operates your butterfly. So I can kind of cheat here and pinch that open. Stick my finger in the danger zone. Well, it definitely uncovered more dirt in there. But that is pretty well cleaned up, I think. Now we just have to stick our little brass piece back up here. That's as simple as throwing it back on your screwdriver and tightening it in. I'm no fuel expert, but if you can see the little bit of, looks like calcium deposit, I think that is from the ethanol fuel having sat in there for so long. I better actually scrape a little bit of that better. Well, that was good English, wasn't it? I'm going to work on scraping a little bit more of that out of there. We've scraped and cleaned that little bowl in there that was all scummy looking. I'm going to let that dry up there just a minute. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and put the actual bowl back on, because it seems pretty clean. Doesn't hurt to give it another quick wipe out. I'm going to give her another little squirt here. That's almost empty. If you're like me and you're doing this in a garage, I would strongly suggest having a door open. I've got a couple windows open in here and it was not nearly enough. This is some potent stuff. Wow, I thought the AutoZone brand was some potent stuff. That one is, whew, that's just about burning my eyeballs. We're going to set this one back in place here though. So I think we are finally done cleaning stuff in there. Now remember talking about this little piece? Right there's that little landmark that I was using for it. So I'm going to remember to stick this right back where it needs to go. Again, I'm not giving these a ton of torque. Just that nice little snug. Now that this is dried up in there, you can probably see some of that calcium stuff. It's still in there, still visible, but I got a lot of it off. I'm a little worried to keep scratching at it because I don't want to scrape up the inside of that. Now this little piece that came out, I just managed to shove a little end of rag in there off camera, and it's definitely wicked dirty down in there. So we're going to try to take this apart. Oh yeah, there's dirt all over that, all over this. Alright, I'm going to work on cleaning that up. Okay, now that I've wiped it off as much as I can, I'm going to give it a couple hard squirts with the cleaner there and start reassembling. This might be the hardest part here. Trying to get this little piece lined back up. Trying to get this piece lined back up with that washer on it. Especially if you got kind of big gorilla paws. We got that back in there. That little washer is on there. Set that down. I forgot to wipe this stuff off. Alright, we've got that cleaned up about as much as you can with that kind of material. There it is. See how that's sunk in and this side's flat? You're going to want to make sure you get the sunk side or counter sunk back facing the right way. Just how we pulled it off. Now I can set that in there and line it up and put my little tiny screws back. I was just double checking there. This has got a little tiny tab here and there's a little tab there. I wanted to make sure that was going to line up. I'm going to try something here, and I don't know that it's recommended or not, but if this runs after we put it back together, then I guess it was okay. But if you're not comfortable with it, you might want to skip this part. I'm just going to put a little dab of WD-40 on the sides there, where it slides and seems to move up and down a little bit inside. That's in a spot that shouldn't be in contact with gas, but even if it is, WD-40 should burn. Okay, let's gently slip this back in there. That little thing kind of has a groove that it sets in. Now we're ready for our spring. And to drop this on there. Then give it a quick wipe. This has got a little prong there. I'm going to line it up with the spring. And then just kind of set it back in place. Grab my screws and start threading them in. Now it's back together, ready to be reinstalled, which is not going to happen tonight for me. It's been a couple of days since we were doing the carburetor cleaning, and you can see here it's reinstalled. We've got our vacuum lines hooked up, and I'm going to point out on this, there's one here, and you can follow this little one down in, way down there. The reason I'm pointing out these vacuum tubes is, at least on this model, they're really important. I was struggling getting it running and then keeping it running and playing around with it, and I kept taking some of the hoses off. Well, one of these hoses stretches all the way up here. This is a vacuum powered fuel pump. So every time I would take that off, I would lose fuel going to the carburetor. And it would stay running for the couple of seconds that it had fuel and then cut out. So right there's the vacuum line going into it. Just something I want to point out, that way you guys know they do make those. I had never seen or heard of one before. So these four-wheelers are also kind of notorious for having idle issues. So if you see me throttling it quite a bit, that's why. I've played with it, and after it gets warmed up, it does seem to idle quite a bit better. I've still got something in here to adjust a little more and get it to idle right. There's the proof. She runs. Alright, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. And if you enjoyed, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Alright, have a good one.